heard some great presentations this morning. The bar is incredibly high. I'm going to spend the next 30 minutes trying not to lower it. My name is Ross Simpson. I've been with Trailfinders for over 20 years. I started my career in sales with Trailfinders, as everybody does, worked my way up to become a general manager of our Cambridge Travel Centre, and then eventually headed up our first and business class department before becoming sales director quite a number of years ago. And then COVID happened. And there wasn't a lot going on with sales. So I spent a great deal more time looking at technology and looking at how technology could, I suppose, to a greater extent impact the growth in sales and the growth in booking numbers within Trailfinders. And during those years, spent a lot of time with Britannic and with Jonathan looking at new innovations and new methods to try and grow the business. And as such, that led to me leaving the sales side of things and spending a lot more time in tech and ultimately where I am now, which is the Chief Operating Officer. So I think it gives me a bit of a unique perspective on the business to be able to look at it through a client's lens, but crucially also to be able to look at it from a business needs perspective and a development perspective. And so to that end, my talk to you today is going to be, it's called Idea to Implementation, a long but rewarding road. And what I'm going to focus on is how, or the lessons I suppose I've learned throughout that journey, some of the takeaways, some of the challenges that we face, how we structure development, and also how we work alongside companies like Britannic to really optimise the opportunity. I promise you this isn't a sales pitch. Just a little bit of foundation laying in terms of who we are. So as a business, we're privately owned by one single shareholder, Sir Mike Gooley, founded the business in 1970, still very actively involved in it today and is the single shareholder. It means we're an incredibly agile business, which means we can think of an idea in the morning and by the afternoon it can be in full flow of implementation, which can be a challenge, but equally it means we can react really, really quickly. We specialise in worldwide tailor-made travel, so whether you're going to Thailand for a twin centre holiday, whether you're going to the USA for a fly drive, cruising, travelling around the world, we cater for it all. As I said, not a sales pitch. But if any of you are in the market for a holiday, do come and see me at lunchtime. Just kidding. Our very first client was booked in 1970 after several months of very hard work by Sir Mike. He often reminds me that 2 days later they cancelled, which was a very disappointing start to business, but we've done all right. We've booked over 16 million clients worldwide since then, so we are a rapidly growing business, experiencing year-on-year growth, which I do put down to the service element and the brand focus that we have, but also due to the innovation that we continually strive to achieve. I've got here, we've got 46 travel centres across the UK and Ireland. That's actually incorrect. We've got 46 now. We opened our 46th yesterday in Windsor, where most of our competitors are retracting from the high street. We're actually expanding because it really plays into what we try and achieve as a brand, and that's interaction, human interaction with our clients. Our clients want to come in and see us. They want to pick up the phone and have a conversation, and that really is our MO. So as we expand into the high street, our business grows, which it does tend to buck the trend of what we find in the industry for the most part. And to that end, we are very service focused. The client is at the heart of everything that we do. We're incredibly proud of our 50,000 5-star Trustpilot reviews that give us a 5-star rating. It doesn't happen by mistake. We work very hard to achieve this, and technology plays a huge part in that, in supporting those agents in order to deliver that brand and that service. We've got a really rich history of adopting technology from a very early stage. Sir Mike was very keen to make sure that we, I suppose, leveraged the technology available to us to be able to deliver brand TF. And as such, from a very early stage, we developed our own CRM. We were very quick to realise that an off-the-shelf product really wasn't suitable for our needs, and so we didn't compromise. We didn't try to put a square peg in a round hole. What we instead did was take on some in-house developers at that point and develop our own CRM, which we still use today. It looks very different to what it did back then, but it is still the same foundational CRM that we're using. We're the first to embrace a computer booking terminal for airlines. Back in the day, late 90s, believe it or not, when a client booked an airline ticket, we used to have a fares and ticketing Bible, which was a paper Bible. They wanted to go to New York on such and such a date with this airline. You'd go and find the fare somewhere in that Bible. It would be a static fare. Then you'd call the airline, see if they had availability, and then you'd sell them the ticket and print it out and give it to them. Airlines quickly realised that with the dawn of computers and with the dawn of technology, if they could could put this in some sort of digitised fashion, they would stand to make a lot more money and a lot more bookings. And the first terminal that we had was from the airline Garuda, some of you may have heard of, which we effectively called the Garuda Terminal, and stuck it at the back of our Earls Court Road travel centre. And at that point, sales for that particular airline boomed, and the rest of the say is history as other airlines followed suit. Working closely with Britannic, Richard in particular, I wasn't around at this point, but Richard working with Sir Mike made sure that we were one of the first companies in the UK to adopt a second phone line. Very hard to believe in today's world that a company would only have one phone line, but such was the case back then. We used to have queues on a Saturday and a Sunday at our Earls Court Road office of 4 to 5 hours for people wanting to book, and one telephone line for those wanting to get through. The adoption or implementation of a secondary phone line when we could double that capacity. So at the time, a huge step forward, which again, thanks to working with Britannic, we were able to do from a very, very early stage. We have our own bespoke air and ground booking platforms, so we work with hundreds of suppliers independently. We consume all of their APIs, we normalise the data, and we bring it into our own bespoke platforms that we develop in-house, we maintain in-house, and we use to present to our consultants, who in turn can look at normalised data across hundreds of hotels, many, many airlines, and pick what the best option is for our clients as they piece together their itinerary. We have ViewTrail and the ViewTrail app. This again is in-house development. This is the nice shiny front end that we give to our clients so that everything we've put together for them and suggested for them in terms of their itinerary, they're able to view on a nice desktop platform or an app platform, which means that we can then really maximise how we are supporting clients, not only through the booking process, but also through the pre-travel, during travel and post-travel process. And it means that because we've developed it, because it's in our own hands, we can be very agile and react to things that are trending with clients. And as we see demand shift, we can make sure that we react so that we're putting things in these platforms that support that and don't inconvenience the clients by having to contact us to ask questions. We can answer it within the platforms that they've got available to them. And to that end, we've got an in-house development and projects team of about 45 people as it stands. That's doubled since the dawn of COVID in 2020. We really did see the benefits of innovating and I suppose being more aggressive with our approach to adopting technology, and our team have doubled since then. So we do have a huge in-house development team that are constantly working on new projects and new ways to deliver brand TF and the service. A quote, I do like quotes. Spoiler alert, this isn't the first one. This isn't the last one you're going to hear this morning. But this particular one, the first time I heard it did resonate with me. It's one that Steve Jobs came out with probably over 20 years ago, but it's as relevant today as it was back then. And that is that you've got to start with the customer experience and work backwards to the technology. And it's something that I often will keep reminding my team of, and it's often something I remind myself of throughout the course of discussions when we're looking at projects and looking at opportunity. There's lots and lots of tech available to us, all great stuff, but it has to serve the needs of the client, because ultimately that's what's going to enable you to grow as a business. So you have to keep coming back to what the customer wants, what the customer needs. And it's just something I thought I would share with you, because it is kind of like our North Star in terms of development. It is always the customer that we are developing things for. Throughout the course of a business, there will be big decisions to be made. Trailfinders is no exception to this. As time cracks on, there are different quandaries that you're faced with, and over the years we've been faced with some of those. And just to give you a bit of a flavour for the sort of decisions that Sir Mike has taken over the years, which by its very virtue allows us to understand where we are going, because the decisions taken are largely about what we're not doing from a client perspective rather than what we are doing. So by being very clear in terms of what we're not going to do for our clients, or we're not going to do because we believe it dilutes the brand, it enables us to really then embrace and adopt the path that we're on. So some examples of this are not being an online booking engine. So with the dawn of the internet and with the likes of Expedia and Apodo and other online travel agencies coming around, it would have been very easy, or the easy decision would have been to become an online travel agent. That would have been the obvious choice. But the decision was made that we weren't going to be an online travel agent. So from a development perspective and from a service perspective, we had to deal with that. We had to understand what we were going to use, how we were going to grow, and how we were going to make sure that we were different to those online travel agencies to ensure that we would still grow as a business. Our consultants don't have email. Which again in 2024 might seem a little bit odd. But we firmly believe that the human interaction, so talking on the telephone or coming into the travel centre, allows us to deliver our brand better. We have a lot of self-belief in our brand, and as such, consultants don't have email because the brand, as we all know, or the message can be misunderstood or diluted if it's delivered over the written word as opposed to verbally communicated. And we don't do online chat either. We heard from Ed and previous presentations this morning about the pros and the cons of online chat. We just haven't found a way of integrating online chat which we believe would be beneficial to our clients. So by virtue of the fact that we are not doing these things, it allows us to make really clear decisions about what we are doing and allows us to look at the opportunity elsewhere to make sure that we are growing as a business. And AI, obviously we employ traditional AI across the business to carry out mundane tasks, but generative AI over the last couple of years, very much a hot potato, as I'm sure we are all aware. No real firm decisions have been made across many businesses about the adoption of Gen AI, because I think everyone sees the clear opportunity that exists. No one quite knows how that fits within the current business. One, because it's changing so rapidly, but also because you don't know whether or not it's going to strengthen your brand or weaken it. But I don't think anyone can make any firm decisions on that as things currently stand because it is changing so rapidly, and I think consumer opinion on it does change quite wildly. So we're fully expecting that debate to rage on within Trailfinders over the next few years, but we'll suspect that we'll adopt it in some way, shape or form, as will most businesses. So opportunity in itself, I suppose, it's a funny thing. You know, opportunity can come from a number of different places. We often seek the opinion of our clients, we seek the opinion of our consultants, and you know, we do a thing every month called Suggestion Box, where we will have everyone that works for Trailfinders given the opportunity to submit suggestions. You would think that that's where a lot of the opportunity comes from, or what a client will feed back to you is where that opportunity comes from. Often it's not. Often it plants the seed of an idea, or it gives you a certain thought train to start working on. But it's not the silver bullet or the light bulb moment that you hope it is as a business. I think, you know, opportunity can come from anywhere. And to my mind, it's a process. It's one that evolves over time. It's very rare that you think of an idea, and at that point, will your development actually give you a finished product that you think it will at the beginning. A lot of the time when you're thinking of an idea, it will evolve, and it is a process that does evolve over time, and you have to allow it to evolve over time, because it's very rare that the idea you originally think of will be the right end solution. It's merely part of that process in my experience. And to that end, it can't be the work of one person either. I think, you know, many minds, many thoughts feeding into it helps it to grow. It's a bit like a plant, really. You plant the seed and you watch it grow and flourish by having, you know, lots and lots of people involved in that conversation. The stronger it gets, the quicker it grows, and it turns into something that is really valuable to the business. And we see that working with Jonathan and his team when we include them in those conversations and sort of speak about the challenges that we face and how we want to overcome it and what we want to do. We start to have different thoughts, different ideas and different opportunities emerge. And so, you know, investing time into something and trying not to rush it is a really key element of it. Despite you really wanting to get something done and developed and out the door because you can see the value it delivers, in order to optimize it, it's really important to give it time to allow it to be the best possible solution that it can be. And to that end, I think, you know, inspiration does come out of the blue. I think having that idea in the subconscious is a really important thing, to let it sort of marinate there for a while, because you can't force an idea, right? You can't really think about an opportunity and think, right, I need to come up with a solution now. This is what I need. It will come to you when you least expect it. It could be, I don't know, at the supermarket or sat in traffic or out walking your dog at the weekend. It's very rare that you get the bandwidth in the working day to have the inspiration. And so to let something settle in the subconscious really helps you then to I suppose, make the most of that idea and come up with the solution at the time that you're least expecting it. If it's like me, it's probably 2 a.m. when you grab your phone, you've got an idea and you try and get something down. And the last one here for opportunity is something that I learned probably a couple of years ago, really. It was a really valuable experience that we went through with Jonathan and Britannic, which is discovery. I hadn't really given it too much thought before then, but what we wanted to do, we're a company who invest heavily in our development of our consultants. So we do a lot of coaching with consultants. We listen to their calls, we listen to it with them, and we ask how they think they could develop the brand better, what can we do to really strengthen that brand delivery, and ultimately serve the client better. So we spend a lot of time coaching. It's a heavy investment. We've got 700 sales consultants, so to have people listen to those calls and sit down with each of them and go through them is a heavy time investment. So our coaches, we've got 44 of them, it means that they've got to listen to 4 or 5 calls per person to draw an opinion. I had a thought that if we could get to more of that data and access more of that data, how much more effective could we be? How much more could we learn about our consultants? How much more could we learn about our clients? And so, as we often do, we sat down with Jonathan, explained what we wanted to achieve, and Jonathan and Britannic and his team sat down and do what we do with clients. They listened. They wrote things down, they asked lots of open questions, and ultimately made sure they were very clear on the objectives we wanted to achieve. And then Jonathan said, well, give me about 2 to 3 weeks and I'll come back to you, and I'll continue the process at that point. And between then there was a few more calls. He came back and he said, right, I've got 6 or 7 different presentations all lined up, the dates are fixed in, let's go through this process of discovery. I thought, wow, that's quite a lot of time invested in this. But it was such a valuable experience because whilst the product was out there and everyone was offering a very similar product, call transcription, it allowed us to then take all of those calls, run analytics through it and understand intimately what was going on each interaction at a consultant level and at a client level. It meant that we could start to really then understand how we can make changes based on information and data at scale. But all of these companies offered a very, very similar thing. So I thought, well, it seems a bit excessive having sort of 6 or 7 different meetings with all these companies, surely one will do. But having gone through that process and understood how each different company or each different software provider considers your needs and wants to really work with you and how they will take your challenge or what you want to achieve and deliver it, it varies wildly. The quality of the product varies wildly. The quality of the people that you work with vary wildly. And so going through that process of discovery with Britannic, we're able to very quickly narrow it down to one particular provider, and Ed gave it away. We work with Calabrio, and we've been very, very pleased with what we've got so far. And we wouldn't have got to that point without going through that process with Britannic. So a very valuable lesson in terms of optimizing an opportunity. 3 images here. I've got an iPhone, I've got a smart speaker, I've got a Tesla. The reason I pull these up is just to sort of highlight, I suppose, to me, they're really beautiful products. They're very simple to use. They've been developed with the consumer in mind. They're very easy, they're very intuitive. You don't really have to think. The iPhone, when I got my first one, it came without an instruction manual. That blew my mind. How am I going to use this? There's no manual. But they are the product of someone's vision, of someone's thinking about an opportunity. But equally, what they are is that 1% of inspiration. Someone's had the idea, but in order to make it happen, there's been 99% of perspiration put into that. And again, this is a quote that I do like to constantly sort of be reminded of personally, because when you are going through that development process, it can be really challenging. There are lots of setbacks. There are lots of challenges and obstacles in order to get to the end product. And to my mind, anyone is capable of thinking of an idea. I'm sure there's all been a product. I'm sure you've all had the experience where a product's been launched, you've looked at it and go, oh, I thought that already existed, or yeah, I thought of that. Well, it takes lots of people to think of something, but it can take just a very few number of people who can actually take that through to implementation. And that's because of the hard work involved in actually getting to that point. So it's that 99% perspiration is what we all do. It's what we do to get it to that point. Throughout the process of development, there are challenges. There are lots and lots of challenges. One that every business faces is where solutions to things can be oversimplified, much to the frustration of a projects or development team. One of the phrases that gets me often is just take the API and plug it in. Great, brilliant. there is a lot of work involved in just that, and that is a very simple and straightforward process, by comparison. But when things get oversimplified, it is difficult to then manage expectations because certain parts of the business just want things to be done. They just want it to happen. But in order for something to happen and to happen well, you have to invest time into it. You have to really understand what it is you're trying to achieve, and you have to look far beyond what the initial problem is to see how many areas you can positively impact with this one bit of development across the business. And very rarely will it just be the single area that you're focused on. There'll be ripple effects throughout the business. And so the minute you start turning those stones over, the bigger the project just seems to become. And so trying to manage expectations can be difficult when you're trying to deliver something in a timely manner, but you're also trying to do it as effectively and as future-proofed as possible. And adoption as well. I'm sure we've all been there where you've discussed with the end user what the challenge is, discussed what the solution is, brought them on that journey, and even been part of the rollout, and then to see them not adopt it when you roll it out. A real frustration because people don't like change. People who have a very comfortable day-to-day workflow, a very comfortable day-to-day process, they don't particularly want change, and they can't see the need for it because within their role within the business, they're quite happy with how things are going. But of course, you're looking far beyond that. You're looking at the greater good of the business, and of course, change is inevitable. And so adoption is also a challenge. And of course, there are technical barriers as well. Not everything you want to do, the tech doesn't necessarily exist, or it doesn't exist in the form that you want it to. So technical barriers or challenges can also be quite difficult to overcome. When we were coming out of COVID, demand was huge in travel eventually. We had lots of false starts, but eventually we got there. And demand was huge for us and the phones were melting down. So we were losing hundreds and hundreds of calls, which is not like us. We answer 99% of our calls that we get presented with every day, and we answer them inside of 8 seconds. So we pride ourselves on that because people can get through to us. So I approached Jonathan and said, look, I don't like losing these calls. I know there's nothing you can do to make our numbers larger. There's nothing you can do to get to those calls quicker, but I want to do something where I can reach out to these clients who keep hanging up because they're not getting through to us. What can we do? And I think within a few hours, they'd come back to us and they'd said, well, we've got this tool that surveys a client after you've hung up. And I said, well, they haven't quite got through to us, so we can't survey them. But the beauty about this was Britannic were willing to adapt that tool in order to serve our need, which was if we recognised the client had hung up because they didn't want to wait, which was perfectly reasonable, we were able to reach out to them with a text message to apologise and to highlight that if they wanted to call back, then they could go through this process and we would get back to them. It was a big commitment on our part, but it meant that at least from a brand perspective, we could still deliver the brand the way we wanted to in that particular set of circumstances, which was facilitated by working with Jonathan and the Britannic team. So it's a fine line between failure and success. There are certain things out of your control, but there are a lot of things in your control, in my experience. In order to secure failure, that's probably the wrong way of putting it, but if you are setting yourself up for failure, as we've heard earlier, fear of failure itself can stop you really taking on a project and making the most of it. I think fear of failure is a tough one because trying to do something at a high level that is going to impact the business, it does take a bold decision to actually go ahead and implement something, and then an even bolder one to go and roll it out because you never quite know how it's going to be taken. So a fear of failure can really impair success. Setting unrealistic deadlines, trying to rush something through without really completing it, and setting yourself too short a deadline, you can often deliver something that is substandard. Poor prep that goes hand in hand with that. If you don't put the time in at the beginning of a project and really turn over all the stones to understand how good something could be, and you just do a bit of surface development, that long term will not be very good, and you'll end up, the project will be considered a failure. Narrow thinking, not thinking outside of the box, engaging with companies like Britannic or engaging internally, or even alternative sort of companies and market research allows you to think more broadly and think outside of the box. So you will often get nuggets of information that you wouldn't have got on your own. So it's really important to not think too narrowly. Never put too much hype around the project. I've done this far too many times in the past where you build something up because you think it's going to be fantastic, you get very excited, and then it's actually not as good as you thought it was going to be, or at least it's not as exciting to the other people as it is to you. So always play it down. Poor communication, that's a really important one, making sure that everyone in the project and everyone who's going to be impacted by this project is constantly communicated to, and they have a full awareness of it, so nothing comes as a surprise. So as good as anything could be from a development perspective, if it lands on someone's lap at the 11th hour and they're not expecting it, it will always be received quite poorly. And then underinvesting in something, and that's both in terms of time and in terms of money, sometimes just one of them, sometimes both. Never underinvest in something, because ultimately it will set something up for failure. So conversely, what makes a project successful? Self-belief. I think self-belief is a huge factor in it. If you're the decision maker, or if your name's on that project, you've got to have a large amount of self-belief, and there are things you can do to make sure that self-belief exists, and that is to go through that process of discovery, go through that process of understanding the opportunity and discussing it with as many people as possible, and making sure that what it is that you're putting forward to develop is going to be, it's going to work effectively, and that gives you the self-belief and the confidence to really see it through. Anticipate setbacks. Setbacks are normal. Setbacks happen all the time. Setbacks happen in most projects. Sometimes it's large, sometimes it's small, but ultimately, if you can anticipate those setbacks, you're less impacted by them and you learn from them. Maybe you learn in this project, maybe you'll learn in the next project, but ultimately, every setback is an opportunity to learn and grow. This is a big one for me, having faith in my team. We're not just developing I suppose, bits of kit for the business here and platforms. We're developing people as well. People as part of this process. They need to be empowered. They need to be able to make their own decisions, and they need to be able to show you that they can step up to the next level. So putting faith in the team and being there for them when there are setbacks or when they make mistakes, as we do, is a really important part of that process, because it allows them to develop, and if they develop, then the business is generally stronger because of it. Seek feedback at every possible opportunity. Make sure you're disciplined. I've fallen into this trap before, where you want to develop phase 2, 3 and 4 all under the same phase as phase 1, because as you've seen the project develop, you got very excited and you thought, well, actually, if we can do this, this and this, we can make it fantastic. And then, of course, it's all a bit rushed, and it's all then developing off plan, which is never a good idea. Set realistic expectations and phase the development. If it's a big project, it's absolutely right to phase the development. Lay the foundations first, then just keep building. And so that really leads me on to the TF and Britannic relationship. It's one that we've enjoyed for over 30 years now. I can't remember the exact amount of years that we've been working with these guys, but we work with them, I would say, probably at least 2 or 3 times a week that Jonathan and I are on the phone chatting things through, and we are with other members of the team. We've got a really strong relationship because they get us, they understand us. To us, they are what we are to our clients. They take the time to understand the needs of the business. They take the time to understand what it is that we want to develop. They don't try and force technology onto us. They try and use the technology available, as I said in that earlier quote, to help us make sure that our client is the focus of our development. And it's a really important thing for us. It's probably the most important thing. And so where we have our, I suppose, finger on our client's pulse, and we look at things through our client's eyes, and we've got great business knowledge, Britannic and the team bring great technological knowledge. They're very personable, they're very adaptable, and they're very, very efficient in the development and the collaboration that we have. So it's a pleasure to work alongside Britannic. Thank you very much.